So welcome everyone. And I'd like to begin by acknowledging that most, if not all of us joining this call are settlers on the land. We are guests here. And I'd like to thank the many First Nations peoples, past, present, and future, for their stewardship, their care, and leadership on these lands that we meet on. This evening, we are going to first hear from three wonderful Soroptimist leaders. And starting with Kiran Omar, who grew up in Pakistan, where she worked for the UN's International Labour Organization as a program manager. And marginalized women were central to her work. Kiran and her husband had a family business for many years in Montreal, where she discovered and joined Zonta, an organization very similar to Soroptimist. And she is still active there, as well as being president of SI Surrey Delta here in British Columbia. Kiran admits to some wanderlust and an insatiable curiosity about people and stories. She's fascinated by stories and food, so she loves to eat and cook and entertain. So Kiran is actually going to host the supper that we're all having at her house right for this. Now, Kiran, would you just recount for us one special moment or something that you're quite proud of in your leadership journey, in or out of Soroptimist?
Thank you, Suzanne, for that rather glowing introduction. And all of you are most welcome. My front door is open. The pot is on the stove, so come on down. One moment that really stands out is in my other club, Zonta, where I was. For a while, we were struggling, and we'll maybe talk about that a little bit later, with something that is across the board with all clubs: dwindling membership, retention, and also attracting donors. So we were all scratching our heads. We had a rather ambitious scholarship and bursary program that we wanted to launch. And I just kind of went to a meeting, a public meeting on transport, which has nothing, well, little to do with women's issues. And there were some transporters there who were talking about how the lives of communities were affected through which transport runs, for example, highways, rail lines, etc. So it got me going with the idea, why don't we ask them to help us by donating, by participating in programs like ours. Ours is was a very modest program, by being the sponsors. And they kind of latched on to the idea. I said, well, you know, if we lift these communities by big companies, big corporations coming in, it can work two ways. It can improve the lives of the women and girls, and it can give the transporters or the companies a lot of positive, exposure in the communities, that they're not just using the communities as a conduit for their trade, but they're also engaging in the activities. And they did understand that and came on board, and they were one of our largest sponsors. So I think in a small, tiny way, I was able to make a bit of a difference. So I'm kind of proud of that. Thanks.
And as well, you should be. Thank you so much, Karen. Now, another of our panelists is Dr. Wanda Price, who has been long in leadership. In her 30 plus years with SI 5 Points Magenta in Philadelphia, she's been club president, governor, served on the SIA board of directors, and she is now completing her term as the SIA representative to SI's Global Impact Advocacy Team. And with her doctorate in organizational leadership, so we should all listen to what Wanda says, she has served in human resources in the financial sector for over 35 years. Wanda also loves travel, and with her cruise to South America and Antarctica, she was able to check off every single continent. And Wanda says she's a finicky eater, so she'll just have the big tossed salad at Kieran's, and then she and I will do the crossword puzzle together. So Wanda, what about you? What's one special moment or something that you're quite proud of in your leadership journey?
Thanks, Susanna. Good evening, everyone. I was reflecting back on, was looking for an opportunity to acknowledge past governors in my region and to recognize them. You know, some of these women I had looked up to in my time as a Soroptimist member. So I came up with an acronym, endearing acronym to a name that we would call the past governors, and that was PEARLS. And PEARLS stand for past governors ever admired and respected for leadership in Soroptimist. And when I rolled this out, I took the opportunity to recognize each past governor that was present at the meeting. And I also reached back to governors that I had stopped seeing. These were women who were getting older and no longer attending meetings. So I wrote a letter to them, and I gave each of the past governors a little pearl pin. It wasn't anything expensive, but it was just a recognition that I wanted to provide to them. And I have to say, PEARLS, the name PEARLS has stuck. We are still called PEARLS. And I think the governors now are still reaching back and recognizing past governors at each region conference. So it's something that I started that I am pleased with.
It's brilliant. You are absolutely a pearl. Thank you for that. I've written it down. Our third panelist is Yvonne Simpson, who joined SI Westland in New Zealand in 1996 and has held many leadership positions from her club to, from 2015 to 2017, Soroptimist International President. And I must say that Yvonne's president's appeal in Nepal is the source of one of my favorite Soroptimist stories. Currently, she's the Federation's membership convener for SI Southeast Asia Pacific. And I actually remember the conference that Yvonne was at. It was my first convention, SIA convention, and you were a guest there, Yvonne. And that was when you said, you know, we want to change our name because some of us are neither South nor East nor West. That was when we were, it was, and we all chuckled. Yvonne's professional life in education included bringing students to the school from Japan, and her own travels there reminded her of the vulnerability of being in new worlds. And so Yvonne says, stepping up takes you to a new place each time, and it is okay to feel vulnerable and call on others to support you. Only those who risk are free. So Yvonne, what's one special moment or something that you're quite proud of in your leadership?
Tēnā koutou katoa, no mai, haere mai. So greetings from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Absolutely thrilled to be here. I stepped out on this journey. Every step was into the unknown. And my memory of a moment where I came away feeling quite pleased about something I did was an instance where I got an audience to actually be with me. And that was at the Montreal convention. It was my first international convention, and I had no idea what the ambiance or the tone of an international convention was. I didn't know whether it'd be very formal. I didn't know, I didn't know. And I had to report on 4 years of Soroptimism from my federation. And I thought what I would do is I'd wait and I'd watch the other federation presidents speak, and I'd just tweak my tone accordingly. Unfortunately, I was the second speaker, which the first speaker was the keynote speaker, and then I was on, and I went, well, okay, here I go. It's me, or you're getting me. And you know, you look out to that audience, and you know how many women were out there. The room was absolutely full. And I thought I needed to somehow engage them. So I was talking about my theme, which was educate and celebrate. And we got to E is the word to enjoy. And so I thought, okay, I'll engage. I say, so how many of you came here to enjoy yourselves? And there was that sort of, response, occasional hand. And I thought, well, I don't have them yet. And so I thought, oh, I said, I can't see many hands. So how many of you came here to be miserable? And that's when there was laughter. And so I felt that from that moment, I actually had an audience that was with me. And I think that moment gave me the confidence to deliver a better presentation than I perhaps would have otherwise. So it moved from being a bit of a droning to engaging. So that's my little memory.
Oh, that's fabulous. So, we already have some great examples of leadership involving the task and achieving a goal and lifting up others and connecting with people. So
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. So we're going to put a few questions to our panelists and then have an opportunity to reflect on our own, perhaps tentative leadership journeys. So bit of housekeeping, please mute yourselves unless you're saying something. And please feel free to post comments in the chat. And just note down any questions that you have for our panelists, and we'll cross our fingers, have time at the end to address those. Don't put them in the chat because we'll never find them. Just jot them down and we'll come back to them. Now, first question. What inspired you three leaders to step into leadership? How did you come to decide that you had it in yourself to be a leader? Were you asked or did you just think of it? Kieran, what about you?
Hi. Interesting. When I saw that question, it really made me pause and reflect, because sometimes when we're in a particular position, we just keep on going with the everyday thing. And I reflected back, my first leadership position, of course, was with Zonta. And again, we were at a place in the club where we all felt very strongly that succession is something that needs to be put into place from the get-go. And we were losing members, new members were coming on, but they didn't feel that they were ready. So it was a combination of events. I had been in the club about 5-6 years, and I felt perhaps I had something new a new perspective to bring to the club, and perhaps I could help by taking on a leadership role and trying it. And also I was asked. So it was kind of a combination. So often one finds oneself in a situation where things sort of come together, and maybe we can talk about it a little bit later. And it's to look at those windows of opportunity and think, maybe I can do this. It sounds easy, but it's difficult, because the minute I said yes, the next instant I was saying, no, I can't. Please let me off the hook. But that's how I kind of tumbled into my role as a leader.
Thank you, Kieran. And my governor-elect, Shari Grant, has the first time she stood up in front of our region, the message she had to everyone was, dare to suck. And that has stuck with her ever since. I think it's brilliant. Wanda, what about you? What inspired you? What moved you into leadership?
I think that was funny. Kieran said she tumbled into certain roles. I was thinking I actually stumbled into a number of the roles that I've held. I didn't join Soroptimist thinking I was going to, have this huge leadership role. And in fact, it was 16 years as a member before I even took the plunge to, try to run for governor. But in the interim, it was the work I was doing within my club trying to familiarize myself with the organization, the different roles. I did end up holding several positions within the club, but the first position I held outside of the club was actually vice chair of credentials. And that was great for me because it helped me put in perspective, how the region was formed and all the districts that make up the region and all the clubs that were in the district. And people were coming to me as the credentials person. I could meet them one-on-one. I met a lot of people. So, I mean, that opened up the opportunity for me to meet these people. Also, all along, I've been very fortunate. All along, people have been whispering in my ear and being encouraging of me to run for various offices. There were people not from my club. These were people that were part of the region or even outside of my region that approached me and asked me to run for various positions. So I've been very fortunate in that regard. Also, I was thinking that after I became governor, I finished my term as governor, and I started thinking, well, I've had district office leadership roles, and I've had a region office leadership role. What would it be like to have a federation leadership role and then international? So that sort of became a goal after that. But after I came off the board, the SIA board, that's when I was falling into all these different positions. People were asking me to, take on different roles. And perhaps it was, maybe they're familiar with my body of work, that I commit to and perform what I say I'm going to do. So, which is very important as a leader. If you set the tone, then people know what to expect of you. But yeah, I sort of stumbled into a lot of different positions that I've had. That's my story.
Thank you. All right, Yvonne, this may be putting you on the spot a little bit, but what got you into the very first rung, if you want, of leadership, like, chairing a committee or taking on something? How did you start?
Well, for me, an answer to the question, at club level, I hadn't been a member for very long when I was asked to chair the meeting because the president was going to be away. We didn't have a president-elect. So she said, Yvonne, you can do it. And I went, well, I was a bit like a stunned possum in front of headlights. I went, oh, I don't think so. And I was just like, and I said no, I refused. And I came away absolutely shocked that I had said no to something. And why was that? So I sat back and I watched a member step up who had been involved with governance in the local district council for quite some time. And I saw that she had a structure to her meeting. And I thought, okay, that's possible. I can do that. I can do that if there's a structure. So let's create a structure, and then I'll have my little piece of paper and I can actually work my way through that. And so I think my first point is that it shocked me, and then I thought, why have I said no? So I was actually astounded, and so that was how I got involved and more involved with the club to become club president the next year, because basically it was our responsibility to provide the next president, and the president was battling on her own, and I didn't think that was fair. So being fair, my sense of justice was stronger than my feeling of being nervous. So they got me. So that was at the club level. The next one was at the national level. I thought, okay, I'll give that a go, and I stood and was not voted in. So the next time it came around 2 years later, I went, no, that's not for me, obviously. And I wasn't asked. I was told that it was my turn. That I was told that it was time that I stepped up and took on that role. I was told that by one person that it was my club's turn. So I went. Well, I wasn't bullied, but I was instructed. I didn't actually have the ear tweaked, but close to it. So I stepped up to that. knowing that I had her support. And then at Federation, I was asked to stand for Federation, but in the meantime, what had happened was that the Federation president of a session or two before had actually taken me with her on some of her trips, so I knew some of the job, so I was more comfortable. But I was the outsider standing for that because I didn't have a high profile. And so you can say to yourself, okay, I've got nothing to lose, but you're still nervous and putting yourself out there. So doubts, self-doubts, overcoming that, seeing it as a challenge, being nurtured, being challenged, being instructed, all those things happened to me on that journey. But I want to reinforce what Wanda said. If you take on a commitment, you undertake it and you do it. So they knew that I would do that because I had my father's work ethic. Thanks, Cyril.
Brilliant. So, Wanda, I want to ask you, what superpower do you bring to leadership? And I use the word superpower a lot. I think sometimes we don't think of our skills or our personality traits as superpowers, but they are. And you mentioned one, you do what you say you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So what superpower do you feel you bring to your leadership?
Well, this may sound strange, but I think it's my creativity. And I'm not just talking about the fact that I love to sew or crafting. Creativity for me is revealed in a number of ways. It's in my capacity for planning. It's in my organization skills. It's in trying to create some form of order out of chaos, in my diplomacy efforts, to how I deal with people, and my memory skills. So I have to be creative and in all those ways. And I think I do exhibit creativity in those aspects.
That's wonderful. Thank you. What a list. We're building a list. Yvonne, what about you? What's your superpower or powers? Wait, you're on mute somehow.
Yeah, perseverance, I think, is one of the characteristics. I think I grit my teeth and I carry on if I feel that I'm being stopped when I need to chug on. So perseverance and stickability, and knowing that success comes from 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration, and seeing it through. But getting that inspiration is absolutely crucial. And I think that for me, humor and taking what could be seen as a difficult moment or a cringe moment and turning that into a moment of celebration, a bit like the Montreal thing. I've had that since birth. I was born on the 1st of April, but my mother didn't tell me that until I was 11, because nobody made a fool of her, she said. So right until she died at 95, I was always born on the 2nd of April. So I'd get all my gifts on the 2nd. And the nurse said, she'll have a sense of humor. So apparently right from birth. The second thing that I've carried, these burdens, this is a burden, is my maiden name was Chalk, Chalk, and I went teaching. Now, you go into a secondary classroom and you are Miss Chalk, Happy Families, the teacher. What do? Do you cringe and pretend it's not there, or do you actually embrace it? And I thought, no, I'm going to embrace it. So my first lesson of the day, of the year, would be all the jokes I already knew about Miss Chalk, Dusty, Squeak, Scratch, what color are you today? All of those, and I would keep the kids entertained, and then we would move on. So I think it's embracing those things and turning them to your advantage, because one of the things that I guess is turning that around, and then making the connections, like Wanda says, being creative, seeing something over in left field and right field and bringing them together into something new and exciting. That's the bit that really gives me the biggest buzz. So there's, I don't know, superpowers, being able to laugh at myself because I've had to do it so often, and also giving something a go and bringing in something new. Yeah, Miss Chalk, the teacher, signs out.
All right, Karen, after you stop laughing, I'm going to come back to that in just a moment, Yvonne. So Karen, what about you? You awesome president, you.
Well, first of all, I'd just like to tell Yvonne, I wish I'd been in your class. It would have been such fun. You know, superpowers is a lovely word, but somehow skills is something that I've kind of thought of it as that this is my skill set, or I hope it's my skill set. Well, it's kind of difficult because that's one thing I think maybe a shortcoming. I really feel there's so much room for improvement in myself, in my abilities, that I find it difficult to really kind of sound my trumpet. But hopefully, that's the best I can say, that I'm bringing the ability to listen. As I mentioned in my bio, I love stories. You can sit me down and tell me your entire family's history, and I will just be enthralled. And to me, listening is an ability, a skill, a superpower, if you would like to say, because people, especially members in one's club, they come with different strengths. Some like to sit and listen, and that's fine. Others have things to say, but in a crowd, in situation where there are other people, or in a formal meeting setting, they hesitate to say what's on their mind, to air an opinion. So I've always found it really helps if one spends a little time in listening. Inclusion is another of my pet or favorite things. I really, really believe, especially in times like what we are experiencing now globally, it's very important to emphasize inclusion. It could be gender inclusion, it could be inclusion of any kind. We need to take everybody along. Again, not every member, not every person, even your friends, have the same strengths, but they do bring something to the table. They do bring a voice, and it's important to include that voice. The third thing I would say, a little bit not to the level of Yvonne, but I hope that I do have a pleasant demeanor. I love to laugh. I love jokes. I can never remember a joke myself, so the punchline always falls on its face. But I think even the most tense situations, and somebody just mentioned that if it's a cringing moment and things are falling apart at a meeting or amongst friends or in a group situation, a little bit of levity, a little bit of humor, and the ability to laugh at yourself. I think Yvonne said something that's so important, is to be able to laugh at yourself. It kind of relaxes the shoulders. You feel the temperature in the room changing, and everybody is a bit more willing to listen to each other, no matter how tense it is. And that's something I've found that has helped me, and I consciously try to develop it, is to find ways of diffusing tense situations, because nothing moves forward, nothing moves sideways. It's a gridlock when there are personalities that are just locking horns. You need somebody who can pull themselves away from the situation and say, okay, guys, let's take a deep breath and start all over again. So those are a few
Yes, maybe
things I think I bring. Thank you.
maybe thank you. Thank you so much. Yvonne, you mentioned, cringe moments. And so I want to dig a little bit. What is one of the biggest mistakes that you've made as a leader? And who did you turn to for help? And what did you do about it? And I'm thinking, this could be a process mistake, like offending somebody or overstepping your bounds. That's my favorite mistake. Or it could be a content, a project disaster. what happened? What did you do about it?
Okay. Well, I had to choose one, didn't I? There have been many, because, you know, Nelson Mandela says, judge me not by my success, but judge me by the times I fell down and picked myself up. So there has been many learnings on this journey, and one that just comes to mind so clearly is when, you know, I have a bright idea, and I see the connection between this and that and the other and go for it. Sometimes I just need to pause for about a few minutes and check something out first. And that happened in a Soroptimist environment where we were appointing there were two positions, and we had two fabulous, absolutely fabulous candidates. And they had different sets of skills, completely different, but together, what an incredible dynamic combination they would make. And so my suggestion was that instead of one being the leader and one being the assistant, that we make them both co-leaders, right? And that was the panel thought that was a great idea. And so that's what we did. We appointed them as co-leaders. I went back to my federation. I announced it because one of them was from my federation. I announced it in the bulletin. I announced it in the magazine. I announced it all over the place, how wonderful it was. And then I was told that constitutionally we could not do that. And I thought, but it's a good idea. But actually, I had no authority to act that way. Well, the panel, it was my bright idea, but the panel had no authority to act like that. And so that's one of the leadership things that I've taken with me. By whose authority do I act? Check your constitution, check your bylaws. And so we had to, you know, go back, step back and say, and determine who was going to be the leader and who was going to be the assistant. And the Soroptimist from my federation was the assistant, and the other lady was the leader. So it fell on me, because it was my federation, and I had the bright idea to go and tell our Soroptimist that she was now the assistant, not a co. And culturally, that was like a very difficult thing to do. So I said, we announced that, I contacted this lady and said, look, this is what's happened, and you are the assistant. And I said to her that this is a chance to, you know, do a good job, and et cetera, et cetera. And of course, that caused a bit of a flurry about what was I going to do to make it right. So I apologized. Took a deep breath and said, what can I do to make it right? I can't undo the mistake, but what can I do to make it okay for you? And she told me that I needed to go to every publication that I had splurted this into and make a retraction that was appropriate. So I wrote a statement, and she agreed that that was appropriate, and I put it out there. And in fact, in the statement, I said, this change shows the quality of our candidate and her humility, that she's put the organisation first. She's a genuine, authentic woman, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. And so it was okay, but I did have a case of the shakes. And the lesson was, by what authority do I act? Check it out first. When I became Federation President, I was told by Lorna Mead, previous Federation President, to read my constitution every night before I went to bed. And while I didn't do that literally, I did do it when things came up, and it saved me a lot of anguish in the future. So I didn't want to humiliate and embarrass somebody by promoting them, then demoting them. But I had to wear it. Sorry.
It's a great lesson.
Yeah.
That's a great lesson. That's a great lesson. Kieran, have you got an example of a disaster that you created in leadership, and what happened? What did you do about it as a
Well, it's kind of Leading from what Yvonne said about apologies, I was a very new president of my club, not Soroptimist, but my other club. And we were planning, we had an annual awards event where we gave out scholarships and bursaries to young women. And it was a big deal. We'd get about 100 odd people attending a nice fancy lunch, and everything was, there was quite a lot of work involved. And I was very new to the role. And the older, as we say, old guard, who'd been there had already kind of assigned roles. And the lesson here for me was check your shoes before you start treading on toes. And I really wasn't aware, nobody made me aware that certain people did certain things, like introducing the speaker, like making the welcome address, etc., etc. So the first meeting, they kind of let me have my say, and we discussed details, and then we had several meetings, and I was not able to attend one key meeting because I was away, where it was decided, okay, such and such person always has introduced the speaker. So the day of, we all arrived there early, and I'm sort of assigning tasks. And I assigned the task of introducing the speaker to a completely different person. So there was this hush. There was a flurry of activity going on. We were setting up the lunch room, and then everything stopped. And okay was all I heard. And the afternoon proceeded. It was a very nice event. So we always have a recap meeting. And before the recap meeting, my mentor, who's an absolutely wonderful, rock solid woman, called me. And she said, you have stepped on several toes. So I said, okay, what do I do? And this is where we come to Suzanne's question, that do you reach out? I did reach out. And I ate humble pie, and I said, how do I fix this? Because the person whose toes I had squashed obviously and naturally felt miffed, felt sidelined. And she said, well, first of all, you have to publicly apologize at the meeting. Read your notes. Like Yvonne said, read your constitution, read the minutes very thoroughly, what was discussed, who is going to do what. And it took months for this person to kind of accept it, because you know, a lot of people in that room at that lunch had been coming to our events for a long time. They were used to seeing certain people up on the podium doing their thing. So the only, I mean, I came away with a lot of lessons. I think one big lesson is in the first year, listen, 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 get a feel for the room as such, and never hesitate to apologize. Egos have no place when you're in a situation of leadership. Thank you.
That's a great comment. That's a great comment. Thank you. Wanda, I want to ask you something. What have you found to be, I'm jumping to a different question now. What have you found to be the benefits of Soroptimist leadership, in particular for you? What, you know, what has it given you?
I think absolutely the networking possibilities. My world has expanded. I've traveled, you know, with different groups and to various countries, and I can make a connection in the country I've never been to before and have a Soroptimist come, you know, to my hotel, take me out to lunch, or take me sightseeing, you know, through their city. The connection is phenomenal. Also being able to have such a wide resource available to you for on any different subject matter. If you get stuck on certain things, there's somebody I can call for this, somebody I can call for that. Yeah, it's, I mean, it's just widened my whole world in terms of the people that I've been exposed to. And, oh, and also I'll add friendships with people that I would have never met had I not been a member of Soroptimist. So that in and of itself is priceless. So
Yes. And I see Yvonne and Kieran both nodding, and I'm nodding. So I want to go to our all these fabulous Soroptimists who are here this evening. And I'd love to ask everyone, just take a moment and put in the chat anything that you see as a barrier or would make you personally hesitate to step up. What do you need? What's a barrier? Just anyone, and it could be within yourself, or it could be something that you feel is missing in the Soroptimist environment. Just take a moment and let's see what we have. No barriers? Excellent. Everyone's going to step up right after this meeting.
can I add something, Suzanne? When I was governor, I don't drive, but I made all the visits to the various clubs. I mean, all I had to do was show up at a train station, bus station, airport. There was always a Soroptimist that would get me to where I needed to get to. So I couldn't, you know, people were amazed that I was governor and was not driving. So that would have been a barrier, I think, for some other people, but I didn't let it hold me back.
So we have some things appearing in the chat, and I'd love to ask any one of you three, Kieran or Wanda or Yvonne, to respond to anything that you see here. We got, yes, confidence.
I would love to, because I see the confidence word popping up many times, and I think one of the ways I was able to step up in confidence was that I was embraced by support, and I think that I had that in a physical sense, and that one of the privileges of being a New Zealander is that a New Zealand Soroptimist is that we had a New Zealand korowai, which is a fully handmade feather cloak, which I wore on many occasions. And whenever I wore that, I felt more grounded, I felt more connected, because the whole message, I could do a whole webinar on the cloak and the symbolism that came with that cloak and why it was given to us. And it wasn't about me. And that was one of the main things. It's not about me. It's the message of the cloak is the bearer of well-being to the world. I wasn't the bearer, I was the wearer of the bearer. But it was the cloak that was so beautiful. And to have confidence in the message of the cloak and have confidence in the Soroptimist mission and vision enables you to step up with a bit more confidence, because you're not alone. You are embraced by an organization, and there are women out there who are just going to be your sisters along that journey. You do have to step out in faith, but I have found that when I have stepped out in faith, that faith has been met by somebody, and sometimes it's the strangest way that has met that look. They can see that I'm stepping out in faith, and they step forward. So you don't tumble too far. You might stumble, but that's okay, because that stumbling's can be quite attractive in a cha-cha. But I think that the confidence thing in yourself is knowing yourself, knowing what presses your buttons, but also knowing that there are others out there who've done these hard yards and are with you. So yeah, that was a benefit for me, was to grow as a person and to grow in my culture, my New Zealand culture, and to be embraced by that along the way.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Karen, you were also very eager to respond to some of the.
Yeah, there are a couple of things, and I'll try to trot along quickly. Confidence, again, echoing what Yvonne is saying. The first thing that I usually do when I go into a crowded room is to take a deep breath and say to myself, these are all people like me. These are all women who've been through similar situations that I've been through. They've faced challenges, and they're here to help me and support me. So if it helps, do keep that in mind, whether you're stepping up in a position of leadership or you're just joining a club. That, as Yvonne said, we're all here to help each other and lift each other up. Another point that somebody made, which I really think we all need to think about very pragmatically, that clubs like ours, and there are many, Zonta, whatever, we face the challenge of aging membership. Younger people, the younger generation, I'm a mother of 3 grown-up adult children. They think very differently from me, as I guess all of you who have children or young family members. They do think differently. We live in an age of information, and there's been a big leap. There's been a big change. They depend on their devices, on social media. Even the way they communicate, the language they use is vastly different. I mean, I constantly have to have my children, translate terms like, what is LOL? And they just roll their eyes. But we all have the capacity to learn. So if we are going to keep our clubs viable, if we are going to keep our mission important enough, we have to attract younger members, which means we do need to keep our minds open. Somebody mentioned that in the chat box. We have to embrace what the young people are thinking. What are the challenges they are facing? They're very different from the challenges that we faced or our mothers face. It's a whole cliched term, brave new world out there. So that's one thing that one has to be mindful. Mentorship, that is so key. I have the good fortune of having amazing mentors. In the Soroptimist club in Surrey Delta, Linda, who's here somewhere, has been an amazing mentor. My mentor in Zonta was just, mentorship does not mean holding somebody by the hand and leading them. Mentorship means telling somebody, I have your back. If you fall down, it's okay. We'll get up together, dust each other off, and continue. So look in your club. You could be a 3-4 member club or a 40 member club. Look for mentors, people who can step forward. They may be the quiet ones lurking in the corner and not wanting to propel themselves, but mentorship is really, really important. Last thing is language barrier. And that is something that I really worked with, because I used to live in a province of Canada called Quebec, where French was the first language, not my mother tongue. And it was a challenge because the French-speaking members didn't find much in common with us, understandably. So try to work around, for example, small example, the flyers for many of our events, we would try to make a point and have them translated in French and have both. Yes, it would cost a little bit extra, but if you make small adjustments, it can help wherever one finds a language barrier. And lastly, not knowing, somebody mentioned in the chat that not having enough information. A barrier could be not having enough information to make a decision. Ask. A question never killed anybody. Just ask. And there is no such thing as a silly question.
Right.
So please ask your club members, ask each other, ask yourself.
I'm getting some super little sound bites in this from all of you folks. Wanda, I want to put the last question to you.
Oh.
You were 35 years in the finance sector. That's a for-profit industry. You've been 30 plus years in Soroptimist. What is different about Soroptimist leadership than elsewhere?
I have to say it's different but the same, because you're dealing with a diverse group of people, and they're all bringing their experiences, their cultures, their personal attributes, their attitudes to this team, your club. And it's up to the leader to figure out how to deal with. Oh, I'm getting an echo.
Yes, there is.
I don't know why that is.
Well, you might have.
Sorry, is Eva Gonzalez?
Yeah, if everybody can mute, here we go.
Okay, thank you. Is that better? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So one difference is that, of course, you're dealing with volunteers, and volunteers need to be stroked a bit more because you're not paying them to do what they're doing, and you have to appreciate them for what they're doing, acknowledge them. Everyone's not going to do everything the same way. You have to give up some responsibility. When you're a leader, you can't expect people to do things the way you want them to do it. Again, they're volunteering. You need to take them at their best, whatever that is. So the leader will need to step up and do what they need to do to be an encourager, a planner, a motivator, and sometimes a problem solver. The other thing in Soroptimist, we are volunteers, but we also have a paid staff that we can utilize to help us find information, share information with clubs and throughout our region. So that might be a little different from some of the other nonprofit organizations. I'm not sure.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And thank you, all three of you, Kieran, Wanda, Yvonne, for the benefit of your experience and your massive accumulated wisdom. Now, hopefully we have some breakout rooms ready. And I would like to ask everyone, and I'm going to unpin you folks here so that we can see more people. And Suze, do you have some breakout rooms ready?
We're going to give it a go. So full disclosure,
All right.
people, this is the first time that I've done this. So I'm about ready to hit the create button here. We'll see what happens.
So,
Am I good to go?
Just before you do that, well, hold on one second. In the chat, I have put at the very top of the chat, I've put some questions. And I would invite everyone in your breakout rooms to take 15 or 20 minutes and dig into some of these questions for yourselves. And when we come back, I'm going to ask everyone to just pop some things into the chat. So, and you know what? The other thing before we do that, talk about stepping on toes and ignoring people and all of that stuff. In my initial welcome and hello, I totally forgot to introduce myself, Suzanne Herron, Governor of the Western Canada region. And I also totally forgot to say this workshop is a collaboration between myself and our region and Yvonne and her federation, because we've been doing some workshops online, and Yvonne got in touch with me before the convention in Dublin and said, you know, this looks neat, let's chat. And so we had breakfast together, and this is the sort of thing that happens in Soroptimist, and you make friends all over the world. And so we said, well, let's try and do some things together around leadership. And so thank you, Yvonne, and my apologies for completely forgetting that at the beginning.
Well, there's another thank you that I'd like to put in the mix. It's got nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it has everything to do with what we're talking about, and that is about choosing a team or having a team. And mention was made of the Nepal project, and I'd like to do a big call out of thanks to Sharon Fisher. I see you, just seen you on the line there, Sharon, who managed that project. So a sneak in that opportunity to say thank you again, Sharon.
Absolutely. One of the things about being a leader is lifting up and celebrating the folks we have. So Suze, if you want to press the create button, and everyone dig a little into some of these questions, and we'll come back in 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay, are people starting to go? Yes, I do. I see them going.
Yes, it's happening.
Yes, all right. This is wonderful. Oh, seems to have stopped.
Well, if it has stopped, we can just
That
have
is
a little
so
breakout room.
bizarre. It looks like we have only 8 people that are left here, like in
Okay.
the main forum. But I would assume that everyone should get a button that says that they accept to go into their particular room, receiving the invite. So I'm not sure why.
Well,
we
never
haven't
mind.
had-
Here we go. Here we go.
Okay. Guess what? We just had a little bit delay. We're in business.
So Sylvia, Bernadette, Lynn, Linda. Yeah.
Next, we have Lynn, Sylvia, and Linda are the 3 that just need to accept. And then I think we should be good.
Excellent.
Okay, we have 2 left.
Oh, and somebody popped back in and out. Linda and Lynn, have you gotten a message about a breakout room to accept?
Governor Suzanne, do you want to pop into the rooms and listen in? And then I will send just a direct message to both Lynn and Linda right now.
Yeah, I'm okay actually. I think it'll be just disruptive if I pop in.
Okay, you got it.
Oh. Can you access the chat?
No.
I'm hoping
Okay,
people.
Linda went. Perfect. And just
Colleen. I'll let her in. Oh. There we go. Maritza, we're just putting folks into breakout rooms, and I'm hoping that people in the breakout rooms can see the questions that I put in the chat.
Okay, I'm going to assign Maritza to room 4.
Great.
Yay. Okay, good. Everybody's there. I
Well
don't know how to
done.
get everybody
Gratitude.
back. Here's the big question though. How do I get everybody back out? Like, when will they
Um,
know?
um,
Let's see what we can.
if we had, uh,
Well, I think I just close all the rooms.
yeah,
And
yeah,
when I
that,
close the
but
rooms, it probably gives them 60 seconds.
I hope so.
I know.
I hope so. So we could just go until 1/4 after. My other hope is that people can access the meeting chat, because that's where I put the questions.
You know what? I don't think that they can. I actually don't see where the questions are in the meeting chat.
They're
Governor
all the
Susan.
way. Yeah, they're all the way
They're
at the top. All right. So I wonder if I can shoot.
Because oops. I don't know what happened to the meeting chat. So what I was going to say is the first thing that I can see on the meeting chat is a hello. Good evening, I'm Miriam. So if I go all the way to the top, that's at 5:48. So I don't actually see the questions.
So I put them in at 5:38, but maybe anybody who came in afterwards can't see that.
I don't know.
Okay,
I can't see them either.
Can I join a breakout room quickly?
You totally can.
Okay.
How do I
pop
get
me?
you in there?
Why
Let
don't
me
you pop
see
me into
where I
room
can.
2? Here, I can press join on room 2. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, and then you can put them into their chat because they should have a chat within the room. But then how do you get yourself back out? Hello, thank you for joining us again. I'd like to assign you to a breakout room. I'm not sure if she can hear me. Let me see. Right there. Hi, Sylvia. Hi, Sylvia.
Okay. We'll see
Well,
how it goes.
yeah. If anything, I imagine there's robust conversation around just leadership in general, which I think is really important. And one of the reasons why I put in the chat that sometimes you might be perceiving you don't have enough information in order to make a decision. And um, Karen said something really powerful. She's like, you can ask, and yes, except that some people won't. They won't ask, and they'll just say, "Yeah, I don't really know." But I find often that when you're on the board is where you really start learning about what goes into every single role, where that's too late. Like, because we want to support people to learn and grow and step into those roles rather than be surprised when they're on the board. They're
Yes.
like, "Oh my God, I didn't know that it would be this much stuff," and
Yes.
so fascinating. So this is just an absolutely lovely workshop, and I'd say that the panelists are stellar. Like, they're amazing. They really are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some real pearls there.
Yeah, exactly.
in both senses. I mean, they themselves are pearls, and there's some great little nudges and pearls of wisdom.
Mhm.
So I hope that it bears fruit. I've asked Governor-elect Shari and board member Shelley to look at best practices, or what goes into being a committee chairing a committee.
Love it. Yeah, that
All
that
right.
is so important.
And then
We-
in a couple minutes, I think we should oh, hey, hold on, I'll be right back. I can put dinner on read.
Hello, Irene. Can you hear me okay?
Okay, so shoot,
I was just
what I
gonna
want.
say I'm trying to connect with Irene, but I don't think Irene can hear.
Ah, hmm. Irene, are you
Sorry about
there?
that.
That's okay. So my big plan, if I had recorded this, what I would do is put it into whatever the Mac program is for iMovie, and chop out the breakout section.
Mm-hmm. So I think
And
that this will go into it, even though I pressed the button, wouldn't it, because you started the meeting, wouldn't it be on your account?
it's going to record on your computer, I think.
No, I had it go to the cloud
Oh,
because there's one of
okay.
two different ways you can do it. So cloud, and then
Right.
you can download it to your computer, and that's
Right.
right. So I believe that it should be on yours.
I wonder.
Because it's not gonna, how does it know it? Like I'm just, and I'm a co-host,
Right.
but I'm not sure where it's going. So I thought of that, and I made a little note here that says, before we hang up, we can both look, we'll stop it, but we
Yeah.
won't, you don't necessarily have to do anything at that point in time, because when you click out of the meeting, then it'll say, what do you want to do with it? Right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
but before we go
So I'm just going to ask everyone, as you come back in, to pop something into the chat. If you did talk about, one action, one concrete step that you're inspired to take by sharing the wisdom tonight, or just anything that came up for you in the chat or in the breakout room, please put it in the chat. And I'm dying to hear what folks have to say. Yes, pace yourself, Jazz. That is for sure. I have recently, I wouldn't say lowered my expectations, but I think I've lowered my expectations of myself a little bit, because my dear husband said, I think you're approaching burnout. It wasn't quite that harsh, but he noticed that I was working in Eventbrite, and I was ready to throw the computer across the room. And really, Eventbrite.
Just a little sidebar, Suzanne. one of our members in the breakout room, Anna, is experiencing a language barrier. So we were trying, Keshala was being very resourceful and looking at Google Translate. But yeah, I just thought I'd bring that to your attention.
Yes, we have the same, and I just wondered whether this kind of forum could be put on in a different language to cater for another language group. In our case, it was Miriam with Spanish. It would be, we were trying very hard, and the will is there, but the language is not for me. I don't speak any Spanish. But Miriam, I think Miriam was persevering, working very hard and wanting to share something. She's going like this. But I just wondered whether a Spanish-speaking forum would be possible. What was the other language, Anna? What was the other Anna's language? Was that another?
Anna was almost no English, and
Spanish.
Only Spanish.
Spanish, okay.
Yeah. So we tried, and I must say she was extremely patient and accommodating, and she was there in the breakout room. But yeah, I echo what you're saying. It would have been nice to have some, maybe an app that would do like translation. We could put our questions in the app. I did try to look for an app while we were in our room, in the breakout room, but it was taking far too much time. So I just abandoned that.
There are some aspects of artificial intelligence I can't wait for them to arrive. This is fantastic, and if anyone would like to share something of your experience or brand of wisdom, then please just do a raised hand, and we've got a few minutes before I have a final question for each of our panelists. So anyone who would like to share, step up.
Suzanne, you can do translation on Zoom. We've done it. We did a parallel event on Zoom, and we used three languages: Spanish, Nepalese, and English. And it was not that hard. I've never done it before.
I saw you put something about that in the chat. Yeah. So that's very interesting.
So talk to me about that.
I will. I'm making a note. Fantastic.
And all you need is one speaker in each language, and they are simultaneously translating. So if you want to listen to Spanish, you're on the Spanish channel.
Okay.
And if Raquel's still on the call, or Julieta, do you still think in Spanish? I know Raquel does. See, she got her fingers up. She was SIA president, and she had to think in Spanish and then produce in English. Smart lady.
That's wonderful. And yes, we're getting lots about.
Yes, that also happened to me. I think in Spanish, but I had to speak in English, and I really prefer not to have an interpreter at the meetings because I can't pay attention to both. Hearing the speaker speaking in English and have the interpreter here in Spanish. So I never asked for an interpreter because I really prefer to just hear it in English.
Yeah, well, on Zoom, you can't hear the English. You would only hear the Spanish.
Okay.
So it's helpful. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the other topic that came through, Suzanne, seems to be a need to look at attracting younger members and working in that space. And I do wonder whether the online webinar that's advertised will be one way of people finding out about that, because Maddie, who is from Rangatahi, which in Maori means young person, chartered a club of under 30-year-olds. And she had been a member of a club that was not younger. And she'd also been a member of a club when she was at high school, because we had a high school student trial. So a recommendation to go to that webinar and hear from Maddie about how she does a composite online, a hybrid kind of club. And she's in her 20s. So I think she'll be well worth listening to.
This
I
is
met
something.
Maddie.
This is something that came up in our group too, that then there is a need for spaces where young women can express themselves, and they can be heard and understood. And it is a concern, I think, for most clubs, is attracting the younger generation, younger women, especially young professional women who have limited free time available. So how can we position our clubs and the Soroptimist organization as a whole to appear attractive to them and worthy of whatever limited time they have available?
And I think that's a very key leadership question. Of there's no success without a successor was one of my mantras, which got me into trouble. But it meant that I focused on who's coming through, and I think that's really, really important. So that is out of this, if that a call can come for that kind of discussion, that would be across federations. That would be great.
Right, that's a universal issue across our organization, the need to attract a younger population. And I would think with us doing so much virtual meetings, that in the SIA, I know we promote guilt-free clubs. So we understand the people's schedules and whatnot may prevent them from attending a lot of meetings, but at least the virtual opportunity has opened up chances for us to get more people involved.
And what we've brought in,
and maybe they could be a time set aside, a session where this can be really given more time and discussed. What are the barriers? And we can ask even young women who are not members, what would it take for them to be attracted to a Soroptimist club in their area? What would it take to bring them in? What would make it more attractive? So that kind of dialogue needs to start in earnest.
All right, I've made a note of that. That's a brilliant idea, Kieran. And I want to give a bit of time to Sharon and to Cheryl. And then I have one question to ask of our panelists, and then we will end on a high note. Sharon.
Okay, mine will be really quick. Yvonne, I just wanted to let you know that I'm visiting Eldoret in a couple of weeks. I know you've been there. And this is in Kenya, for those who don't know. And one of our projects is an hour out of Kenya. And one of the things we're going to be doing is participating in a charter of a new club with 22 to 30-year-olds. There's 35 of them. And Kayanga has done her utmost to teach these young women. And she's seeking some sponsorships to help them defray the cost of dues and whatnot. So that's somebody to hook up with for sure. And I think, I had 2 young Soroptimists for my president's appeal by intention. And I always said, I just did in our group, I never felt an age difference. We felt a difference in experience, and we were open to share. But you can't tell young people what to do.
No.
You have to let them do what they do and not be the older woman that's speaking to them, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's hope if that's done right. Thanks.
Thank you. Cheryl.
And besides recruiting or trying to be attractive to young people, one of the others, younger women, the other thing is some of our projects we do are ones we've done for 25 years. They're labor intensive, and it's not the way young people do it anymore. So we need to think outside the box. So this workshop you're talking about may be very helpful in that regard.
Well, all right. So 2 things. I will pursue that notion of a workshop around and for and with young people, and I also will say that Darlene's Zoom friendship Zoom, which is on October 27th here, October 28th in the in the Southeast Asia Pacific, is not just about online clubs, but also online meetings and activities. And I will make sure, in addition to spreading that on Facebook, etc., I'll make sure, because we've got everyone's email addresses here, I'll make sure that the information gets out to everyone who's on this call. And now I just want to close with one more question to each of our three brilliant panelists. What would be one single piece of advice that you would want to leave our members with? If just one. Yvonne, what about you?
Okay, so I would like you to take the best that you do for others, take the moments when you are kind, compassionate, supportive, encouraging, forgiving, and apply that to yourself.
Thank you. Noted. Wanda Price, what is one piece of advice you would like to leave folks with?
I would like to say, nothing beats a failure but a try. Don't focus on what you think you can't do. Focus on what you know you can do, and take ownership of the ground that you walk on.
I love it. Thank you. And Karen, President Karen, what's the one thing you'd like to leave us with?
Whatever you do, whatever position you find yourself in, listen sincerely, because there are ways of listening. Nowadays, attention spans are limited and people kind of whiz through conversations, but take the time, listen sincerely with your heart. Remember to include even the quiet ones who tend to be invisible. They may have the brightest ideas. And always, always remain non-judgmental. It especially applies to this discussion we had a little bit earlier about bringing young people in. Their ways of doing things are different, but it doesn't mean our way is the right way. Just keep an open mind, keep those doors and windows open, and let things come in, let ideas come in.
Thank you so much. And that one of the most impactful questions, it wasn't a statement, that I had, that I heard in one of our leadership workshops was Michelle Aubrey, who's from New Zealand, living here in British Columbia, on dealing with disturbances. And she said, what if you took right and wrong off the table? So that would be my suggestion. I just want to say thank you to Kieran and Wanda and Yvonne for your time and talent, and taking the time to think about all of these questions, and bringing your wisdom and experience to us. And thank everyone here for coming and participating, and learning and growing. And I sense the commitment to pass this on to the younger generation. So I will, Suze and I will ensure that this is available. We will figure out how to do that, and there will be more. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a wonderful evening, afternoon, night, wherever you are. Take care.